What if everything you've been told about your limits was never actually true? What if the life you keep picturing for yourself isn't sitting somewhere out of reach, waiting on luck, talent, or someone's approval, but is waiting on one quiet shift that happens inside your own head? Most people spend years trying to fix their circumstances. Instead, they rearrange their routines. They chase after motivation like it's something you can bottle. They wait for confidence to show up before they'll move. And still, nothing really shifts, because they never touch the one thing that's actually generating their reality day after day, the programming running underneath it all. Your mind is always listening, even in the moments you're not paying attention to it. A thought you repeat becomes a direction. A direction you repeat becomes a habit. A habit you repeat becomes an identity. And little by little, without ever making a conscious choice, people find themselves living inside patterns they never actually picked. They start saying things like, "I'm just not built for this. This is who I am. Success is for other people. I always fall short." And one day they look up and mistake those recycled thoughts for permanent facts about who they are. But here's what almost nobody tells you. Your brain was never designed to stay frozen in place. It adapts. It reorganizes itself. It learns. It rewrites its own code. The person you are right now is not the final draft. How you think can change. How you respond can change. How you interpret the opportunities in front of you can change. The mind that built your current life is not obligated to be the mind that builds the next one. None of this happens overnight. It happens through choices you repeat, focus you sustain, and actions you keep taking. One new thought, one new decision, one new standard at a time. And at some point, something remarkable happens. You stop reacting to your life and start authoring it. You stop asking for permission and start trusting your own judgment. You stop merely getting by and start genuinely becoming. This isn't about pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about recognizing that your thoughts function as instructions and your future is taking notes. You're not here today to collect another dose of motivation that fades by tomorrow. You're here to rebuild the operating system running underneath your mind, because once that changes, everything downstream of it changes too. If any of this is landing with you, stay with me, sit with it, and commit, really commit, to becoming the strongest, clearest version of yourself. Section 1. The thoughts you repeat become the life you live. Your life is being shaped right now, not only by the decisions you make, but by the thoughts you keep rehearsing. Most people assume change starts with action, but action is actually downstream of something deeper. Before every outcome, before every habit, before every win or loss, there's a thinking pattern that's been repeated so often it starts to feel like simple truth. The mind learns through repetition. A thought that shows up once passes through and disappears. But a thought that shows up again and again gets flagged by your mind as important. Eventually, it becomes familiar. And whatever becomes familiar starts quietly steering your emotions, your expectations, your confidence, and ultimately, your behavior. Think about how many people open their eyes each morning already bracing for disappointment. Before the day has even started, they're telling themselves, "Nothing ever works out for me," or "I just don't have what it takes," or "People like me don't get the good opportunities." They may never say it out loud, but the repetition is happening internally on a loop, whether they notice it or not. And then something powerful kicks in. The mind starts hunting for evidence to back up what it's been told. Suddenly, every setback feels like proof. Every delay feels like a personal insult. Every obstacle feels permanent. Not because reality actually changed, but because attention did. This is why two people can walk through the exact same circumstance and come out the other side with completely different stories. One sees rejection and shuts down. The other sees the same rejection as feedback and grows from it. One sees difficulty and backs away. The other sees the same difficulty as a chance to build strength. The difference, more often than not, starts with what each of them is quietly repeating to themselves in the background. This doesn't mean ignoring real problems or pretending life is effortless. It means refusing to let negative repetition calcify into identity. Instead of rehearsing your limitations, start rehearsing possibility. Swap "I can't do this" for "I can learn this." Swap "I always fail" for "I get a little better every time." Swap "nothing ever changes" for "every action moves me forward, even the small ones." At first, this will feel forced. That's completely normal. Anything unfamiliar feels awkward before it becomes second nature. Your mind doesn't instantly believe a new thought just because you said it once. It believes what gets repeated consistently, without exception. So be deliberate about what you say to yourself. Guard what you let into your attention. Be selective about what you watch, what you listen to, what you consume, and what you rehearse mentally. Because your thoughts aren't background noise. They are rehearsal for a performance your life is about to give. And eventually, your life starts performing whatever your mind has practiced the most. Section 2. You are not obligated to stay loyal to who you used to be. One of the biggest reasons people stay stuck isn't a lack of ability. It's that they remain loyal to a version of themselves that has already stopped serving them. People carry old identities around for years without even noticing the weight. They introduce themselves through old failures. They define themselves by past mistakes. They try to build a future using memories that were never meant to become permanent fixtures. Maybe there was a moment when something didn't work out. Maybe someone doubted you. Maybe you tried once, it fell apart, and quietly, without you noticing it happen, a sentence formed in your mind. This is just who I am. That sentence is dangerous because the moment identity locks into place, effort starts to evaporate. People stop trying new things because they've already decided how it ends. They stop growing because they've assumed growth is reserved for other people. They stop imagining more for themselves because they think their story is already written and filed away. But your past was never meant to be your definition. Your past is information, it's experience, it's feedback. It is not a life sentence. Think about it honestly. The person you were 5 years ago doesn't think the way you think today. Your opinions have shifted. Your understanding has deepened. Your priorities have rearranged themselves. So why would you assume the version of you sitting here right now is the final one? Growth begins the moment you stop asking, "Who have I been?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming?" Every real transformation starts with permission. Permission to set down old labels, permission to release outdated beliefs, permission to stop describing yourself as the person who always quits, always overthinks, always plays it safe, always shrinks. Because identity follows evidence. Every time you act differently than you used to, you generate new evidence. Every disciplined day becomes proof. Every hard conversation you have anyway becomes proof. Every promise you actually keep becomes proof. Every challenge you face instead of avoiding becomes proof. And slowly, your mind starts rewriting the story it tells about you. You stop saying, "I'm trying to become confident," and start saying, "I am becoming someone who trusts themselves." You stop saying, "I hope I become disciplined one day," and start saying, "I am building discipline right now, one day at a time." Transformation is rarely dramatic. Most of the time, it happens quietly. One decision, one action, one repeated choice at a time. You don't wake up as a completely different person. You become different because you stop guarding the borders of your old self and start collecting evidence for the person you actually want to be. Your future does not need a permission slip signed by your past. Section 3. Your emotions are signals, not instructions. Most people spend their whole lives treating their emotions like direct orders. If they feel afraid, they assume that means stop. If they feel uncertain, they assume that means they're not ready. If they feel discouraged, they assume that means they're failing. But emotions were never designed to run your direction. They were designed to inform you. They're signals, not commands. They show up to communicate something happening inside you. But that doesn't mean they're always describing reality accurately. Fear doesn't always mean danger. Doubt doesn't always mean you're incapable. Discomfort doesn't always mean you're on the wrong path. Sometimes discomfort simply means you're growing, and growth has never once felt smooth on the way through. Think about the moments that actually changed your life. Learning something genuinely new felt uncomfortable. Speaking up when it mattered felt uncomfortable. Starting over from nothing felt uncomfortable. Trying again after a hard failure felt uncomfortable, and yet those exact moments so often became the opening chapter of real transformation. The issue was never the emotions themselves. The issue starts when people hand the steering wheel over to whatever they happen to be feeling that day. One hard day becomes a reason to quit entirely. One flash of fear becomes a reason to disappear and stay invisible. One wave of uncertainty becomes an excuse to abandon a goal that mattered. And over time, emotions end up designing a life nobody actually chose on purpose. Emotional mastery starts with a different move. Instead of reacting instantly, observe. Ask yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Why is it showing up? What is this emotion trying to point out to me? That small pause, that gap between the feeling and the action, changes everything. Because once you start observing your emotions instead of obeying them automatically, you get your freedom back. You realize fear can be present while you keep moving anyway. You realize confidence was never the prerequisite for action. Action is usually what creates confidence, not the other way around. You realize anxiety doesn't actually predict outcomes with any accuracy. You realize motivation is unreliable by nature, but commitment doesn't depend on your mood at all. Strong people are not people who've somehow figured out how to never feel anything. They feel things fully, they just refuse to hand over control. They understand that feelings rise and fall like weather, while values stay put like the ground underneath. So when fear shows up, they keep going. When doubt shows up, they adjust course and keep going. When frustration shows up, they extract the lesson and keep going. They trust their decisions more than they trust their moods. And something remarkable starts to happen. The emotions that used to run the show start losing their grip. Not because the emotions disappear, but because your awareness gets stronger than they are. You stop asking, how do I stop feeling fear altogether? And start asking, how do I keep moving even while fear is still in the room? Because your emotions might speak loudly, but they don't get to be the sole author of your future. You can listen to them without obeying them. You can feel them fully without surrendering the wheel. And you can take the next step before you feel completely ready for it. Section 4. Where your attention goes, your life follows. Your attention is one of the most powerful resources you'll ever have. And most people give it away without ever calculating the cost. Every day, 100 different things are competing for your focus, opinions, notifications, other people's problems, comparisons, noise, distraction, dressed up as urgency. And slowly, attention gets scattered across so many directions at once that people forget they were ever the one in charge of where it goes. But attention is never neutral. Whatever you repeatedly focus on gets stronger inside your mind. If you constantly focus on what's missing, your mind gets trained to spot lack everywhere it looks. If you focus only on problems, your mind gets sharper at finding even more problems. If you focus on criticism, fear, and doubt, eventually those feelings start making your decisions for you. Your attention quietly becomes the filter your entire reality passes through. Two people can stand in the exact same room and walk away having experienced two completely different worlds simply because they've trained their attention differently. One notices the opportunity, the other notices the obstacle. One notices the progress, the other notices only how far there still is to go. One notices what's possible. The other notices every reason it won't work. The difference isn't always intelligence, and it isn't always talent. More often than not, it's simply focus. Most people assume success comes from doing more of everything. But real growth often starts by paying attention to fewer things more deeply. Attention works like a muscle, and like every muscle, it strengthens wherever you train it. If your attention keeps bouncing from distraction to distraction, deep thinking becomes almost impossible. If your attention is trained with intention, clarity starts showing up on its own. That means protecting your mornings, protecting your environment, protecting whatever gets access to your mind. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every distraction has earned a seat at the table with your goals. You don't need to consume everything in order to stay informed. You don't need to respond to everything to prove you matter. Sometimes real progress is built quietly, through selective focus rather than constant output. Ask yourself honestly, what am I feeding my attention every single day? What conversations are shaping how I think? What habits are directing my energy without my permission? Because attention doesn't just vanish when you spend it, it gets invested somewhere. And wherever it's invested, your future quietly follows behind it. Start deliberately giving more attention to growth than to fear, more attention to learning than to comparison, more attention to solutions than to excuses, more attention to your actions than to outcomes you can't fully control. At first, the shift will feel almost invisible, but over time your mind adapts, your decisions sharpen, your confidence builds, your direction gets clearer. And one day you'll notice something powerful. The things that used to pull your focus around no longer have that power over you because your attention is no longer being pulled. It's being directed on purpose by you. Section 5. Transformation hides inside ordinary moments. People often wait around for some dramatic moment to change their lives. A single powerful decision, one burst of motivation, one perfect opportunity that flips the whole script overnight. But real change almost never announces itself with that kind of fanfare. Most extraordinary results are actually built out of ordinary moments. A decision nobody else even notices. A habit nobody applauds you for. A choice so small it feels insignificant in the moment you make it. And yet those small moments carry enormous compounding weight because your life isn't built out of rare dramatic events. It's built out of repeated, unremarkable actions. Every single day, you're sending signals to your own mind. When you keep a promise you made to yourself, your mind notices. When you dodge a task you know matters, your mind notices that too. When you show discipline even though nobody's watching, your mind takes note of that as well. Every action becomes evidence, whether or not you're paying attention to the tally. People consistently underestimate how fast small decisions shape identity. Reading a few pages doesn't feel life-changing in the moment. 20 minutes of practice doesn't feel extraordinary. Choosing patience one time doesn't feel dramatic at all. But repetition builds momentum, and momentum is what eventually produces transformation. Most people don't fail because their goals were impossible. They fail because they expect fast, visible results from actions that only work through slow consistency. They get discouraged because they can't see progress happening in real time. But growth usually happens well beneath the surface, long before it ever becomes visible from the outside. Picture a tree. For a long stretch, nothing seems to be happening above ground at all. But underneath, roots are spreading out quietly where nobody can see them working. Your habits function exactly the same way. Every disciplined action is strengthening something invisible long before it ever shows up as a visible result. This is exactly why consistency outperforms intensity every time. Anyone can feel fired up for a single day. Anyone can push hard with energy for a week. But repeated action builds something far more durable than a burst of motivation. It builds trust. Trust in yourself. And self-trust changes absolutely everything downstream of it. Because once your mind genuinely believes that you follow through, resistance starts to lose its grip on you. You stop negotiating with yourself every morning. You stop waiting around to feel ready before you start. You become someone who acts, not perfectly, not dramatically, but consistently, day after unremarkable day. Don't underestimate the small decisions. Choosing to begin matters. Choosing to keep going matters. Choosing to return after a setback matters more than almost anything else. One healthy choice, one focused hour, one finished task, one hard conversation you had anyway. These moments look small in isolation, but stacked together, they build an identity. And identity is what quietly shapes destiny. Your future isn't being written only by your biggest decisions. It's being built quietly and continuously by the small choices you repeat every single day without fanfare. Section 6. Become the architect of what comes next. There comes a point in life when something clicks into place. Nobody is coming to design your future for you. Not circumstances, not luck, not perfect timing, not someone else's approval. At some point you understand that if your life is going to look different, you are the one who has to become intentional about building it. Most people live on default settings. They react instead of creating. They wait instead of deciding. They hope instead of designing anything on purpose. Days turn into weeks. Weeks quietly turn into years. And eventually people look up and wonder why their life feels so disconnected from the dreams they used to carry around. But reality starts shifting the moment you stop acting like a passenger and start acting like the architect. An architect doesn't start with random scattered actions. An architect starts with a vision, deciding what they want to build before a single foundation gets poured. Your life works exactly the same way. If you don't choose your own standards, your circumstances will choose them for you. If you don't direct your own thoughts, distraction will happily do it instead. If you don't define your own priorities, urgency will show up and replace your sense of purpose without asking permission. This is why intentional living actually matters, not because every day will turn out perfectly, but because direction matters more than speed ever, where you don't need every answer figured out in advance. You need clarity on what kind of person you're becoming. Ask yourself, what values will guide me? What habits will support the person I'm building? What standards am I no longer willing to lower, no matter what? Because standards shape decisions, and decisions shape everything that comes after them. People often assume confidence has to show up first, before they act. But confidence is usually manufactured afterward. It grows every time you act in alignment with who you're trying to become. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes proof. Every difficult choice adds to your foundation. Every moment of discipline becomes another support beam. And gradually, your life stops feeling random. You become less reactive, less dependent on other people's opinions, less controlled by whatever mood happened to show up that day. You start making decisions from vision instead of from fear. That doesn't mean obstacles vanish. Architects don't stop building just because the weather turns. They adjust the plan and keep going. Your setbacks don't erase your blueprint. Your mistakes don't demolish your future. They simply become part of the construction process, the same way scaffolding is part of any building going up. The moment you stop asking life what it's going to hand you and start asking yourself what you're going to build, everything begins to shift. You stop waiting around for the perfect moment to arrive and start generating your own momentum instead. You stop hoping for change from the outside and become the actual source of it. Because your mind was never meant to be a prison built out of old patterns. It was meant to be the place where your future actually gets designed. Every thought, every action, every standard you hold becomes one more brick in whatever you're building. Section 7. What you practice today becomes who you are tomorrow. Here's something most people spend their entire lives searching for, without realizing they're looking in the wrong place. Real change doesn't begin outside of you. It begins on the inside. Your future isn't manufactured in one flash of inspiration. It's built in the quiet, private conversations you have with yourself. The thoughts you repeat, the emotions you learn to work with instead of against, the attention you protect, the small actions you actually commit to, and the standards you choose to hold on to, even when nobody's checking. Everything you eventually become starts in the mind, long before it shows up anywhere else. You've now seen the chain clearly. Thoughts become patterns, patterns become habits, habits become identity, and identity becomes reality. Which means your life isn't fixed in place. It doesn't matter where you started. It doesn't matter what you believed about yourself before today. It doesn't matter how long you've lived underneath old limits you never actually chose. Your next chapter does not have to resemble your last one. You can choose new thoughts on purpose. You can build new evidence, one action at a time. You can train your focus like a muscle. You can act before confidence ever shows up. You can become someone calmer, steadier, wiser, and far more intentional than you've been up to this point. But understanding all of this changes nothing on its own. Knowledge doesn't transform anything until action actually begins. Your mind doesn't rewire itself just from hearing the right words. It rewires itself when those words turn into repeated decisions, made over and over, especially on the days it feels pointless. So when this ends, don't go back to your life exactly as you were sitting down. Carry one lesson out with you. Pick one habit to start. Make one promise you intend to keep. Take one action today, however small. Start before conditions ever feel perfect. Start before motivation shows up to help you. Start before fear has the decency to get out of your way, because it usually won't, not on its own schedule. The goal was never to become a completely different person overnight. Nobody does that, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. The goal is to become slightly stronger every single day, so quietly and consistently that one day you look back and realize you no longer think, react, or live like the person you used to be. Your mind is listening right now. Your future is watching to see what you'll repeat. And the life you actually want is not waiting on anyone's permission. It's waiting on your decision. This is your moment, not tomorrow, not someday. Now.